You folks know Mark Penn. He's been around a long time, about as long as I have. And he's on Fox, he's elsewhere, but he's a straight shooter. He's been on my show in the past. Mark Penn, how are you, sir?
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. You wrote a piece in The Hill, which I agree with 100%. Andrew Stein, the former president, Democrat of the New York City Council, wrote a piece in the New York Post basically condemning his party. You have others who have condemned that Schumer speech, that he's giving aid and comfort to the terrorists, Hamas, who are trying to buy time and undermining the government of Israel. And I want to know, number one, so the American people know, what is your take on this? And number two, are you getting any pushback?
Well, just corrected, it was on foxnews.com. And, look, I've known Senator Schumer for a long time. I actually have a lot of respect for him generally. And he's been a long-time supporter of Israel. And I was really stunned, by his speech. And I think that somehow here in this election year, the administration position, which was rock solid for Israel, has deteriorated ever since 100,000 voters voted uncommitted in Michigan. The timing correspondence here couldn't be clearer. And I think that it is, frankly, I think the politics of this is wrong in the first place because Americans really do support Israel, do support the funding for it, and the swing voters are real supporters of Israel. And second, the values here of not supporting appropriately a Democratic ally is just, something I cannot personally stand.
Let me challenge you a little bit. Actually, Biden started turning on Israel before that Michigan vote. And I would also argue that some of those 100,000 that didn't vote for him were actually blue-collar automobile workers who are unhappy with this whole EV thing. But all that said, you also said a couple other things. For instance, why this obsessive focus on Israel? Look at Haiti. You now have 11 million people on the run, starving to death. And we hear almost nothing about it. In fact, what we hear from the State Department is we're really not going to put anything in place to even get Americans out. You made that contrast. I hadn't thought about that. You made that contrast. Why? What was your point?
Well, the point was so much focus on Israel and Gaza involving 2 million people, in which most people see Israel as trying to avoid any civilian casualties. And here, right within our own hemisphere, is 11 million people who suddenly are living under gang rules, right? Now, this is going to create a massive problem with immigration if nothing's done. And in the past, with our American leadership, we would have put together a group of countries and we'd say, look, we can't allow 11 million people in our hemisphere to have gang rule, complete deterioration and anarchy. And there's no concern whatsoever for those people. So there's something out of sorts here with what's going on and in terms of why are we only focused over there, and we just pay no attention to what happens to 11 million people? I thought, as you said, I don't think anybody else really made that connection.
No, nobody did. It's a very important point. And why do you think, another point you raised, is this whole moral equivalency issue? They're using Hamas statistics. We now know that they're complete lies. We always had a hunch, but now a top statistician in America at Wharton School and University of Pennsylvania wrote a piece. And my word, he said, this is crap. And I'll give you 5 reasons right off the top why it's crap. And he lays, and they still use the numbers. They act like he never wrote the piece and never analyzed that information. What's that about?
No, and I did a poll, and they have convinced the majority of people that those are accurate numbers. Why would we ever believe in Hamas-generated numbers when we've seen the instances for either a terrorist group, be they diverted I think as much as $25 billion of aid into building a war machine, and their only goal is to wipe Israel off the face of the earth, right? And so I wanted to tell you one thing, if I just have 30 seconds.
Yeah, of course.
I went back to Another thing in the piece I point out is Pearl Harbor killed 68 U.S. civilians. Now, it killed about 2,000 to 3,000 military, but 68 civilians. But even 2,000 to 3,000, this is on the same scale. What happened on October 7th is on a bigger scale, 1,200 people out of 9 million, all civilians. And what did FDR say? FDR said no matter how long it may take us to overcome this premeditated invasion, the American people in their righteous might will win to absolute victory. I believe that I interpret the will of the Congress and of the people when I assert that we will not only defend ourselves to the utmost, but will make it very certain that this form of treachery shall never again endanger us. Why should Israel take any other position than FDR did after Pearl Harbor, and why would we not completely support that position?
It is shocking to me. In fact, it is infuriating to me. And FDR didn't actually fund the Japanese, did he?
No.
So why is Joe Biden funding Iran?
Again, American policy here in the region, to me, has gotten way off track. That's not even good politics. It doesn't make any sense what happened.
I tend to think, Mark, honestly, just man to man, I tend to think he's surrounded with these ideologues, guys like Blinken, and he had this guy Malley before. They come out of the Obama administration. They also come out of the Ivy League schools. They've talked about how they believe they need to rejigger the Middle East, create a balance of power between Iran and Israel. They've talked about it. It's been written about. And so they're not doing anything to stop Iran from getting an atomic bomb. And they're putting their foot on Israel's throat, even if it wants to destroy Hamas. This is driven by politics, maybe with Biden, but a lot of people around him, it's driven by ideology. Now, this is a problem. When you have politics that go down to the sewer level, when you have ideologues who believe these things, and when you have a growing part in the Democrat Party who literally represents Hamas, whether it's Tlaib or AOC or these, it's only a minority of the party. It shouldn't be any of the party. Are you concerned about what's happening to the Democrat Party?
I am incredibly concerned. Look, I have analyzed this, and it's mostly really by generation and age that it happens.
You mean old men who are 81 years old? Schumer, 75 years old? Anyway, go ahead.
Yes, but if you look at America, on this poll, I have a simple question in my polls: Are you more supportive of Israel or Hamas? Now,
right.
It runs about 82-18, something like that. But it has run close to 50-50 with people 18 to 24.
Frightening.
And so we have a generational problem in this country where the generation coming up didn't experience 9/11, didn't experience so many of the events that occurred. I mean, look at what's happening in Moscow today.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. And they don't understand the danger to the world.
Just so everybody knows, over 40 were murdered, over 100 were wounded. A terrorist attack in Crocus City Hall in Moscow. Do they know who did it yet, Mark?
Islamic State has taken credit for it.
I see. And Mr. Putin has done his best to embrace Hamas and Hezbollah in Iran, hasn't he?
He has.
Uh-huh.
So,
while he slaughtered the Chechens, by the way, just like Xi slaughtering the Uyghurs, he's put 2.5 million of them in concentration camps, and then he entertains Hamas and so forth and so on. See, it's my view that the Marxists and the fascists and the Islamists have a lot in common. What do you think?
Look, this whole theory of intersectionality, I have no idea why the American left has gotten in bed with people who are antithetical to anything that they believe anyway. It makes no sense, and it has left a lot of people confused how this occurred and what it means.
Mm-hmm. You do a great job, and I'll tell you why. You worked for Clinton, you're a Democrat, but when you analyze things and you do your polls, you shoot straight down the middle. That is, you're a professional. And honestly, that's the way it used to be. That's the way it used to be with journalists, most of whom were Democrats, but they try to conceal it by being professionals. That's completely out of the door, out of the window right now. So you're a very rare gem, and I should know I'm a gem collector. So I want to congratulate you, and that piece that you wrote was fantastic. I read it on the air, and God bless you, my friend.
Thank you very much, and I try to ask all the questions. Democrats will like some of them, Republicans will like some of them, but you can really see opinion. Look at the HarvardHarrisPolls.com. Read our polls. They're available to the public. I post everything.
Oh, I meant to ask you one other thing. Which party's more supportive of Israel?
Interestingly, it is now more Republicans are more supportive of Israel than Democrats, which is fascinating because when I grew up, it was the opposite.
World's changing right under our feet. All right, my friend, Mark Penn, God bless you, and thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, be well.